Hello, I'm Julie from Spellbound and welcome to the start of a series of videos that show you how to make a collage necklace similar to my bouquet necklace that you can see in front of you. Now it's a very simple process to make each individual step, but all these simple processes build up into something really spectacular. Now this is based on the original design, which features in Spellbound Floral Jewellery, which is a book we wrote a few years ago. And as you can see, in that case, we made it in pastel colours. This time, I'm going to make it in richer autumnal colours, and I'm going to make some berries to go in with the design too. It's all based on a rope of knitted wire. Now this knitted wire is available pre-knitted in a tubular form. I'm going to show you how to form that into this really easy to stitch surface that maintains its flexibility so that you can attach all of your prepared elements to the other side. So we'll be making this support in our first session. But before we start beading, we need to look at the materials. I'm going to clear this away and put out some beads so you can see the sort of things you'll need to achieve this type of effect. I've got together a selection of materials that would be suitable for making a bouquet necklace. We've got seed beads and shaped beads, but I'd like to show you first the knitted wire that we're going to be using to make the back support for the collage. It's a wide knitted stockinette wire. As you can see, it's tubular and it's in this wide format. Now I've used it before in narrow in a previous video to cover a bead to give us a surface to stitch into. In this case we're going to be making a solid fabric that you can stitch into. Now it comes in a metre long piece and you'll be able to find lots of different colours available. Now on the back of the bouquet I've just made, I've used this lovely bright violet colour because it toned with all the beads I'd chosen. You can see we've got a rust red here. This is the chartreuse that I used on the original design. But you choose a colour to match your theme. It doesn't really show, but if it does peek through, it's nice to reinforce what you've made your decoration from. Now to make the decoration, I've got some seed beads and some extra beads. I'm making the background of the collage with a series of sunflowers made out of size 10 seed beads. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 colours. You can use as many colours as you like, but I think about 7 works well for distributing and mixing and matching across this size of design. Now I'm using 10s because I've had them out on my table, but you can use 11s if you want to. They work just as well, or a mixture of the two. Your choice. Now I've been making some autumnal kits, so I happen to have these colours out. I've selected out and brought a few extras in, but I'm happy with that selection of size 10s. Now in addition to the sunflowers, I'm also going to be making some berries. Now the berries are optional, obviously, you're being the designer here, but if you'd like to add some berries, I would suggest you do them in size 8 seed beads. And I've got some berry colours here. I've got an AB frost cranberry, a purple and a silver lined wine colour. Now inside the berries I've got some 2 size 6 seed beads, so I need some size 6 seed beads as well, and I've chosen these in a purplish colour that if it just peeks through it won't really matter, but any colour is suitable. Now that will make the background and all the beadwork bits. I also want to break up the surface with some larger beads. This helps to bring the eye into focus, because otherwise it's a little bit too seed beady going in all directions. So I've chosen some lucite flowers. I've got some lucite leaves and some glass leaves and some lily flowers rather, sorry. Now I might use more or less of them. I've just got a selection here so you can see the type of thing I'm talking about. We're going to be adding a rope to the back. Now I'm going to be showing you how to do a herringbone rope with an accented edge. If you want to do the same again, you will need some extra size 10 or size 11 seed beads, and I've used 2 colours primarily. You'll need about 5 grams of the main colour and about 3 grams of the accessory colour. And then these ones down the accent edge I just picked up from the leftovers from our little flowers. I'm also going to be adding a bead and loop clasp, so I've got a selection of beads to make my clasp from. Something between 8 and 10 millimeters in diameter is ideal. I'm going to be using a size 10 beading needle, and I'll be using Nymo thread. And I'll be using a thread colour that matches the beads I'm using at this particular time. Right, let's get started. I'm going to start by making the support for the beaded collage at the front of the design. Now I'm going to use this bright violet knitted wire, and it's quite soft and it's tubular as I showed you before. Now at the moment it's very flimsy and it's quite fragile in many ways, so we're going to make it firmer and we're going to stretch it to make it longer. So to start off with, we're going to increase the layers by folding the whole tube in half along the length. So I'm just going to give it a nice crease so that I can see exactly where the middle is. Now it can stretch if you're not careful, so do it in sections. Take your time and just neatly fold it in half all the way along the length. And because it's 1 metre long, you can probably hear rustling and rattling off the side, and that's because it's caught on my scissors and a pencil and all sorts of things. So make yourself a nice neat area to work on. Now that was Bella the dog. Who's just confirming the fact that I have a very messy work table. Okay, so I have folded that in half all the way along the length. I'm now going to open it out, and I've got that fold mark down the middle. I'll find approximately the middle of the length, and I'm going to fold one side into the middle and crease. I'm going to do that all the way along the length. As I say, it does tend to stretch if you're not careful, and although we're going to stretch it in a bit, we don't want to distort it now. So just do a small section at a time. Just fold it by pressing. Try not to run your fingers along the fold at this point because you'll tend to stretch it. So we need to do the same here. So I've got one side folded into the centre all the way along. You flip it round and repeat. So at this stage it's a bit like origami. It's really easy to fold, and this wire comes in so many different colours as well. I've chosen this bright violet because it tones quite well with my bead selection, but on the original bouquet design I used what they call chartreuse, which is a lovely lime green colour. I find that extremely useful. Right, so we've got that all the way along. So I folded it in half to start with, there's the centre fold, and then I folded both long edges into that centre fold. I'm now going to re-establish that centre fold all the way along, and I'll give it a really firm press. Again, I'm not stretching yet. I just want to make sure that those folds are neat. Now we started off with a tubular ribbon, so that gave us 2 layers. Then we folded it in half, and then we folded the 2 edges in. So we've actually now got 8 layers of stockinette knitted wire, and that will give us a wonderful surface to stitch into. It's firm, but the needle will pass easily. However, at the moment, although it's firmish, it's not firm enough. So now I'm going to stretch it. I'm going to start at this end. I'm just going to hold, just gently pull through my thumb. And if you compare the stretch bit to the unstretched bit, you can see it's starting to narrow down. I'm going to take my time. You'll probably hear it stretching out. Okay, so that's the whole metre done. It's already feeling much more sinuous and stronger. I'm going to do that again. Let's have a little look. You see, narrower, wider. Keep going. You see it's starting to get quite sneaky. And again. Now you do this as many times as it takes to get it down to a nice, neat ribbon. We're getting there, a little bit more I think. There's not much more stretch left in it. You can hear there's not much more stretch in it. There we are. So we've gone from a wide piece of ribbon, which was originally this wide, which we folded in half, then we folded the 2 edges in, and we've stretched it down to that diameter. It's around about 8 millimeters in diameter, but anything approximating that will do very nicely. I'm getting a bit more stretch, taking it the other way. I'm happy with that now. It's nice and smooth, and I can see how much softer it is and how much more flexible and how much stronger. Now we're going to turn it into our support for our collage by plaiting it. We're going to do 2 layers of plait. We're going to do one across the top and a short one for the bottom. Now this means I'm going to have to cut it, and don't use your best embroidery scissors or beading scissors for this. Use your kitchen scissors and just trim off the ends to start with, because we don't want that fluffy bit. You can see it makes lots of little bits of wire, so it's often a good idea to do that over the bin. And we're going to divide it into 3. So I'm going to do this by eye. So I've got that divided into 3, and I'm just going to cut 1/3 away, and I'm going to put that aside for the moment. That's going to be for my lower plait that widens out the centre of the support. This is going to be for my upper plait, so I need to divide this longer length into 3. So that's 1, 2, 3, and just make 1 cut, because that gives me 1 length, and then I've got 2 lengths in 1 section here. So I'll hold that up, you can see 3 the same length if I've got this one folded in half. This is going to make my first plait. Now, to help to secure it before I stitch it, I've got some little dressmaking pins, and I'm going to start by making a loop at one end, well actually in the middle of this long piece, and that will be the connector to the cord I'm going to make at the end of the collage. This is my 3rd piece, or the extra bit I cut off. That's going in between those 2 layers, so 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layer. I'm going to put a pin. You can see the pin goes through nice and easily. I haven't quite caught that bit. There we go. Pin goes through nice and easily, so that we can make a nice firm top to our plait. And now it's just a normal 3-way plait. I just need to catch all the layers. That's better. I've caught all the layers now. Right, so it's a normal plait. So it's over there. Bring the outside one to the centre. And I'm trying to keep the ribbon nice and flat. Yes, this is going to be against the skin. I want it nice and smooth. I found these necklaces and this technique really useful, because it makes it really smooth and comfortable against the skin, and it's flexible too, as you can see. Because when you do a background with beading, if you make sort of a solid piece of peyote stitch or herringbone, it's less flexible. So I'm looking at making the centre of my necklace a little bit longer, so I think that's going to be sufficient for the top row, more than sufficient. So I've got 3 ends here. I'm going to make the biggest one into a loop to match the loop at that end, and I'm going to pin it. There we are. Now I've prepared a needle with some beading thread that matches my wire, and I'm going to use the thread double. And I'm going to secure these ends, and you can see how easily the needle goes through. So I'm going to start with a double stitch. I'm going to make a few stitches straight through to amalgamate all the layers. Of course, as soon as you put a pin in something, everything catches around it. Now the beauty of this wire is that your stitches almost completely disappear because they pull up tight to the wire surface and nobody would know they were there. So that's a few stitches to hold it all together, and now I can take out the pin and make sure it's really secure by making a neat row across the front. I need to make sure all of those raw ends of wire are secured in. So I'm going to wrap my thread round. A double stitch to secure it. There we go. So I'm going to trim off these thread ends. You can see how easily the thread disappears against the... Right. I'm going to trim the end off. And I will do exactly the same at the other end. Now you can see there's a few little bits of wire sticking out there, so I can't finish off yet. I'm going to trim those. I'll take some more stitches across there just to secure them in. Now this surface here, where the join is going to be hidden by our collage. So that's going to be the back, which is really nice and neat. I'm going to do the same at the other end, and then I'll be back to you. So here we have the plait finished off at both ends, and it's quite neat. There are no rough edges, certainly not on the side that's going to be against the skin. That's really important. On this side it's less important, so try and bring all your rough edges or the cut ends of the wire to this side, because we're going to apply our collage to here, and obviously then the rough edges will be hidden underneath the flowers and the other items we're going to put on. Now I've gone back to the short piece of wire and I've done exactly the same. So I divided it into 1/3 and 2/3. I made a loop in the middle of the long 2/3 piece, and I introduced the short piece and I've plaited it up. So I've made another plait, and it's worked out, it's going to be about half the length of this one. And I think it's probably half the length rather than 1/3 of the length, because I gave the wire another little stretch. Now I'm going to fasten off these two junctions as well, and then I'll be back to you to show you how to join the two together. So I've got my short plait and my long plait, and I want to join them together like this, so I end up with a slightly wider section at the centre front, which will make the centre of my necklace a little bit deeper. Now I can just stitch them together, but fortuitously, because we have loops on the end, it's extra neat if we thread them on instead of just stitching them on. So I've threaded them onto one end, and I can now play around with manipulating them until I'm happy with the profile. Now that's looking okay, I think. I don't want too much of a gap here because that means I can't stitch onto that particular space, although everything we're going to put on this particular design will overlap, so it will cover this little gap. Now this is the back of the necklace, or sorry, this will be the front surface of the necklace, because this will be where the flower collage is attached, and that will be where it's against the skin, which is much smoother. On this side we've got the little raw ends here from the small plait, and we've got a raw end there from the big plait. So I'm going to make sure when I do my collage that those are properly concealed. Right, I think I'm happy with that overall profile. So I'm going to use the attached thread from finishing off the small plait just to stitch them together. You can see again how easily the needle passes through all the layers. That means that when you come to do your collage, it will be simplicity itself to stitch all your prepared elements into place. So that's one side done, and I'll do the same at the other side, and that's it for our first instalment. I'll be back with the next video and I'll show you how to start to make flowers and how to bring together some more elements to put together to make our collage. Thank you for watching and see you next time.